Welcome to the Happier and Healthier podcast. I'm your host, Maria Marlowe, and this is a place where we don't rely on good luck or good genes for our health and happiness, but rather we create it with our thoughts and our actions each and every single day. Each week, I'll bring you a thought or a guest that will help you live your happiest and healthiest life. Are you ready? Welcome back to the Happier and Healthier podcast. Today, I have my friend Max Goldberg on the show, who's been called an organic sensation by the New York Times and named as one of the nation's leading organic food experts by Shape magazine. He's the founder and editor of both livingmaxwell.com, which is an organic food blog, and Organic Insider, which is a must-read weekly email newsletter with all the latest news on everything that's happening in the organic food industry. So as a health-conscious consumer, and especially if you're a health coach or nutritionist, it's really important to stay up to date on this type of information. So definitely go check that Organic Insider email newsletter out after the show. Now, Max is also the host of the Living Maxwell podcast, which he interviewed me for. So you can check that out. He interviews people inside and outside the organic food world. And so today we're really going to focus on his main expertise, which is organics and GMOs. We're going to talk about hydroponics and all the questions you have about organic food. Towards the end, we also shift and talk a little bit about his experience with depression and antidepressants, and specifically getting off of antidepressants. I think it's really awesome that Max is brave enough to be candid about his experience about this topic, because this is a topic we tend to shove under the rug and not talk about. So I really wanted him to share a little bit about his experience with it, because I know so many of us go through periods of depression. I know so many people who are on antidepressants, and it's not telling you what to do one way or the other, but I think it's always nice to hear other people's stories and hear other people's experiences so we can learn and just know what our options are. Before we get to the interview, I have one quick update and also a huge thank you. So let's start with the update. If you guys listened to episode 38, which was with Dr. Momo Vujicic, we talked about gut health, the microbiome, and more specifically how understanding exactly which microorganisms are living in your gut can help you understand exactly which foods to consume more of and which foods to consume less of for your unique body. I mentioned that I was going to do the test and share my results with you. So my results are finally in. I've been following the protocol for 90 days. And so I am sharing my entire experience and results and all of that with you guys on the blog. You can find that at mariamarlowe.com/blog. And you can either just scroll down for it, or you can use the search box and just type in stool test. That will probably be the easiest way to pull up that post. Secondly, a huge thank you is in order for all of you guys listening to this podcast and everyone who's reviewing this podcast on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to it on. It really helps this podcast get incredible guests and to reach more people. So I really, truly appreciate it. And I read every single review. So I wanted to share one of the reviews that caught my eye. And I'm going to continue sharing one of these reviews each week because I really, really appreciate it. And I want to shout you out and say thank you. So Bree MW wrote, very insightful and delightful. I discovered Maria's podcast a few weeks ago, and every single one, I've listened to about 12, has been so eye-opening and educational. More people need to be aware of the toxic products available to us and the negative effect they have on our health and society. People wonder why there's an uprise of obesity, cancer, and autoimmune diseases. We need to pay attention to what we're putting into our body. Her podcasts have made me so motivated to continue to make healthy lifestyle upgrades and venture more into trying natural products, after research, of course. Being informed is your first step to mental clarity, longevity, balance, and living a happier and healthier life. So Bree, thank you again for this amazing review. And for anyone listening who wants to write a review, you can do that very easily on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. Be sure to send me a screenshot of your review. You can send it to info@mariamarlowe.com. And as a thank you, I'll send you back a free 3-day healthy eating meal plan, which is designed specifically to help lessen your sugar cravings. If you've set a goal for yourself to slim down or improve your health, and you need some help getting there, join me for Eat Slim, my 10-week online nutrition and cooking course. It's been repeatedly called life-changing by past participants as you finish the course having a better understanding and appreciation for your body. You'll learn how to tailor your diet to your unique body so that you wake up feeling energized, light, and vibrant. You'll conquer digestive issues, shed weight, get rid of sugar and junk food cravings, and learn how to cook and order healthy foods no matter what the situation. If you've been struggling to find a diet that helps you feel amazing every single day, sign up for Eat Slim at mariamarlowe.com/eat-slim. Past students have told me they got more out of this than working one-on-one with a nutritionist, and that I should be charging double and triple what I am for this course. But I really want to keep this accessible because I want as many people as possible to be able to do this program, so I've capped it at less than $30 a week. So if you're ready to get healthy for good, head to mariamarlowe.com/eat-slim to sign up. Max, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to share all your tips about organics. So let's start with the most important question, which is why are you such a huge advocate for organics?
Well, Maria, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on with you. So organic is something that I discovered in 2001. And I went to go see this woman I was dating at the time. I went to go with her to her naturopath appointment. And, this naturopath started educating me about the importance of organic. And I always thought we needed chemicals to kill all the bugs and this and that. And she was like, no, you don't. And it was in 2001, I started researching what organic was and what were these chemicals that they were spraying on our food and about GMOs. And immediately I knew that these are things that I did not want in my body. I was doing some other things that weren't so great for my body, but the light bulb went off about food. And for some reason, I just became really, really passionate about it. And I've been eating close to 100% organic since 2001. But these are things that, our bodies should not be in our bodies. These are cancer-causing chemicals that should not be in our bodies. It's sprayed on much of the food supply in the US. GMOs is a one big experiment that they're doing on humans. There are no long-term studies on the safety of GMOs. They've never been done on humans. Basically, they're doing them on us right now. And so for some reason, I just got really passionate about it and saw the importance of organic food. And several years later, it became how I was spending my days working in the industry.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I mean, you've even went so far as to found Organic Insider. Like you've really made it your life to preach the importance of organics. So you mentioned GMOs. I do want to get back to that. And I have so many questions to ask you. But first, I just want to know, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about organic?
I think that they say it's only for people of money. And when you look at the data, it's people of all socioeconomic categories that are purchasing organic. It's not just people of means, it's lower and middle income people as well. So I think that's the biggest one, is it's only for the upper class. And it's not true. I think I think price is the biggest misconception about it and who the demographic is.
Yeah. And it's funny you say price. Well, obviously, of course, you're going to say price. I feel like that's the biggest thing that comes up with organics is that it's
Mm-hmm.
really expensive. But,
Mm-hmm.
I just went in Florida right now. I'm staying at my parents' house and there's a Publix here, which is this big, like regular supermarket, huge supermarket. And I just ran in the other day to get one organic cauliflower. And I went and the organic cauliflower was $2.99 and the conventional cauliflower was $3.99. So I don't
Wow.
know if there was a mix up or sure what was going on there, but it's this regular grocery chain that has a very decent selection of organic, and it's really not that expensive. And I feel like with Amazon now purchasing Whole Foods and all of these online stores, there's so many ways that we can save money on organics. So I'm just curious, do you have any favorite places that you shop for organic or tips for saving money on organic?
I think if you go to farmers markets, I think that's obviously, it's a really good way. And I think the best way for people to look at it is in a few ways. First off, if you can eat an organic breakfast, which it could be cereal, it could be fruit, it could be, whatever you eat for cereal. And generally, if you're cooking at home, it's going to be much less expensive. So that's 33% or one third of your day you're eating organic. So, that's number one. If you can, shop at farmers markets, if you can buy in bulk, if you can get, one or two meals that you cook at home a day, or even and then ultimately what it comes down to, Maria, is how you want to spend your money. Because I know people with a lot of money, and buying organic to them is absolutely no issue, and it doesn't affect their lives whatsoever. And they complain to me about the price of organic, and yet they'll take trips around the world, and they'll go skiing, and they'll take, spend tens of thousands of dollars on trips, and they'll complain about the price of organic grapes. So ultimately, what I think it comes down to is, how do you want to spend your money?
I agree. It's all about perception, right? And what your priorities are. And if your health is your priority, which I hope it is, and I'm sure if
Mhm.
you're listening, it is,
Mhm.
then spending a little bit more on the highest quality food definitely makes sense because over the long run, you're going to feel better, your health will be better. And so it really makes sense to make that investment.
Absolutely. So that is a conversation I have all the time with people. And, it ultimately comes down to their priorities. And, if you have kids, I don't have kids, but if I had kids and money was really tight, I would feed my kids all organic, and I would go conventional if I did not have the money to feed the entire family. So when people need to make a decision, it's get your kids organic first before the adults. If they're literally, you cannot feed the whole family organic, because the kids' bodies are still developing. They should not be drinking the milk that's got the bovine growth hormone. And these animals have been fed GMOs. That's the big thing. One of the big things in organic that people don't realize: when you're eating non-organic meat or dairy, these animals are eating GMO feed. And this GMO feed has been, laced with chemicals. And that is really problematic. So it's the kids are really susceptible to the chemicals and to, this GMO food. So it's really, getting that priority straight as well.
Yeah, and definitely animal products. I think animal products, it's extremely important to choose organic and
Hmm.
pasture raised and the best quality that we can. But let's talk about GMOs. So I think we've all heard of GMOs. Some people might be more familiar than others, but for those who are not really sure exactly what they are, can you explain a little bit what they are and why we should really avoid them?
Well, what it is scientists, insert DNA of bacteria or whatever it might be into another organism. And so what they're using modern biotechnology to create these foods that do not exist in nature. That's essentially what it is. And GMOs were invented for one reason: to sell chemicals. That's it. If they did not sell chemicals along with, because what happened is there's been a lot of consolidation in the industry, and the ag companies are the chemical companies. So the companies that sell the farmers the seeds are also selling them the chemicals. It's like the razor and the razor blade. The
Mm.
value of selling someone a razor is not the razor itself, it's selling them the blades, so that person has to go buy blades every week or every month. It's the same model with the GMO industry, where the farmers buy seeds and they have to buy the accompanying chemicals as well. So these are crops that have been engineered in a laboratory that do not exist in nature. And that's the problem with it. So these scientists are essentially playing God with our food supply. And they're making these changes using modern biotechnology. And we do not know the long term effects of this food. So they present real health risks. And the other thing, as I just mentioned, is, these crops are being sprayed with cancer causing chemicals. Glyphosate is the most prominent one. 300 million pounds of glyphosate are being sprayed each year in the US, 1.65 billion globally. Now, glyphosate is the primary ingredient in Monsanto's Roundup. And glyphosate is known to the state of California to cause cancer. The World Health Organization said glyphosate is known as, they said it's a probable human carcinogen, which means it probably causes cancer. This is what's being sprayed in our food supply. This is what's being sprayed on the playing fields at schools. This is what's being sprayed in our parks. In New York City, they're spraying it on parks. There's movements all over the country, including New York City, to have them stop spraying it on our parks. So it's absolutely everywhere. And people wonder why cancer rates are nearly 50% in this country. So GMOs are a real problem, but I would say even more so are the chemicals that come along with the GMOs.
Yeah, it's incredible. So back when I was in school, I actually did a paper on GMOs and for my biology class, and
Really?
my professor hated my conclusion and my hypothesis. But basically, I dug into the research and into USDA research, government research, and the sort of sentiment around GMOs is that the reason they were created, I'm sure it is to sell more chemicals, but what they say is it's because they want to increase crop yields and feed more people, right?
Yeah.
And so what I found, like digging into the actual government data of output of these GMO fields, is that not only do GMO farmland, does it produce less crops than the just regular ones that don't have GMOs, they actually end up spraying more agricultural chemicals, because what ends up happening is those pests become resistant, and so they become stronger and stronger, whether it's weeds or bugs or whatever it is. So they have to just keep spraying more and more chemicals. So these GMO farms, like you mentioned, they end up using more chemicals on them than just like a regular, even conventional farm. So,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this narrative that we need GMOs to feed the world is 100% propaganda. The reason people in Venezuela are starving right now has nothing to do with not being able to feed them and not enough food in the world. It's a political issue. So this narrative that these politicians have been fed by lobbyists is just complete and utter nonsense, but they're not being told the other side, because the organic, on our side, the lobbyists and whatnot, we haven't done a good job of educating the politicians. They just have so much more money to spend on lobbying and have been so aggressive with it for so many years that politicians believe them. So from a political lobbying standpoint, we just don't have the muscle that the ag chemical industry does. And also, as you were talking about super weeds, I think it's about 50 million acres of super weeds in this country, where these crops become resistant to all the chemicals, and the weeds actually grow stronger and more resistant. And so what the chemical industry has convinced, the EPA and is that, we need stronger chemicals. So one of the things that they're using now is 2,4-D. And 2,4-D was used in Vietnam for Agent Orange. So actually spraying 2,4-D on our crop, well, they have been for a while, and they're going to be spraying a lot more of it going forward. So we're on the pesticide treadmill. And, that's one of the reasons why, Maria, when I first got into organic food, it was a very selfish reason. It was, I don't want to put this in my body. But as time went on, I realized that this is much bigger than just me. This is about, what's better for the environment. And also what very few people think about is what's better for these farm workers. These farm workers, they get really sick because they're outside having to pick all the crops in these fields that are sprayed with pesticides and have minimal to no, protection. A lot of these farm workers are here illegally. Their rights get abused. And, so when we buy organic, it's really a political statement. It's saying, I don't want these chemicals poisoning my land, my water, and I want to protect farm workers and make sure that they're not exposed to these chemicals. So organic, in my view, once I got into the industry and started writing about it in 2010, my perspective on all this shifted from just about what was good for me and understanding the role that organic plays in the larger role in society.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great reminder, right? Because when we're standing in the grocery store deciding between the organic apple and the conventional apple, it's not just us and our health that we're making a choice for, right? We are choosing for those farm workers, right? Because the more organic that we purchase, the more organic farmland we're going to need, less of the conventional, right? And I remember this was so long ago. I mean, this has got to be over 5 years ago. I remember reading an article in the Times about the tomato farmers in Florida,
Hmm.
actually, and they were having children with three legs or three arms and or missing a limb and all of this like crazy crazy stuff, and it was believed to be from all of the agricultural chemicals that they were spraying. So yes, our choices affect the farm workers, our choices affect the environment because those chemicals are blowing in the wind. So they're in our air and being deposited all over our neighborhoods. They're running into our water, which we're then drinking, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So there's just so many repercussions of that one choice, right? That can be traced back to what are we choosing in the grocery store. So that's a great reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard for a lot of people to go into the grocery store and think about the farmer because they never see the farmer. They have no contact with it's hard, but ultimately this is a choice that's much larger than what's good for me. It's really, this is about what's best for society.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I never really think about the farmers when I'm shopping, but that is like a really great reminder.
Mm.
Speaking of which, I'd love for you to speak a little bit about the difference between these large organic, like huge, huge organic farms that we see in every grocery store. We see the brand names in every grocery store across the country versus you mentioned shopping at farmers markets and these smaller organic farms, maybe local farms. Is there a difference between the organic that we're getting from that huge, agricultural farm versus the small one?
Yeah, there is a big difference, and that's one of the major issues in organic right now. Organic has become very, very big business. It's, I think, the latest numbers that came out, 52 billion in the U.S. So it's big business. When you go to the organic food trade shows, particularly Natural Products Expo West, each year in March, it's I don't know, this year was 85, 90,000 people, and it's chaos. You can barely walk the aisles on the first day. So it's become really big business. So a lot of these major, agricultural producers want to get in. And so when you look, and so basically what's happened is a lot of these dairies, particularly those in Texas and Arizona, they have these dairies with 15, 20,000 animals that are not getting adequate access to pasture. And the Washington Post did a big investigation on a company called Aurora Dairy, where they took satellite photos, took visits, and what they showed was it appeared that they were major, major violations in how these dairies were operating. And so that's one of the big problems we have in the industry is that, for example, with milk, not all organic milk is the same. And this is one of the problems that we're facing with right now. You go into the supermarket and you buy organic milk. I'm not going to single out brands. You can go to anyone who's curious can go to the Cornucopia Institute. I think it's cornucopia.org, and they have an organic dairy scorecard. And they've ranked all the brands from the worst to the best, and you can see how they've rated it. But not all organic milk is the same, and generally it's the smaller ones that are following the rules to the T, and we got larger ones that are skirting the rules because the USDA has done an absolutely horrible job on cracking down on the certifiers and creating a level playing field. And that is one of the reasons why, if you read, even though dairy consumption is going down and more people are switching to plant-based alternatives, there's a glut in the organic milk market because you've got these massive, essentially organic factory farms producing milk, and the USDA is not cracking down on them. And the Washington Post did a huge investigation about this, and it's putting small organic dairy farmers out of business. And they've got these major issues with the rules as well. I don't want to get into it. It's pretty technical, but essentially they have not clarified the rules and they are not enforcing the rules. So that's one of the reasons, why I became so involved politically, Maria, was because I was seeing what's going on. It's like, how can I just sit back and not say anything? And that's really guided, what I do and my writing. So to answer your question, in specific regards to dairy, people should go to the cornucopia.org, check out their organic dairy scorecard. And if you can buy from a farmer at your farmer's market that's certified organic, or if that farmer is farming organically, and and they can tell you, no, we're not using any pest management, we're everything's clean, no hormones. I think it's great if you can buy from your farmer and you can look your farmer in the eye and he or she can tell you how the food is produced. So I mean, that's fantastic if we can do that, but that's not something that everyone can do.
Well, yeah, in a lot of places it might be harder to find farmers markets. In a lot of these major cities like New York even, they have
Mhm.
great farmers markets. You don't get everything there because not everything grows in that region, but
Mhm.
we do have great farmers markets. You can talk to them. For anyone who wants to find a farmers market by them, they can head to, well, there's two places. So one place that's great is called eatwild.com, and you can look up by your state any sort of organic producers of both animal products and vegetable products, so you can see what's local to you, and you can sometimes even order so you don't have to actually go anywhere. And there is another website called localharvest.org, and that will tell you all of the farmers markets in your neighborhood or in your state. So
Mhm.
those are two great resources. So, you mentioned earlier the importance of organic standards, not just in food, but in other areas, right? So, you mentioned, like, for example, parks are being sprayed with pesticides. And I remember, again, a few years ago, I love Central Park. I love sitting and laying on the grass. And I remember, I remember one day walking into the Great Lawn or whatever it's called and passing a gate, and there was a sign attached to the gate that basically said they were spraying glyphosate on the on the grass, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." So yeah, so where else are we coming in contact with these chemicals and we don't even realize it?
Well, it's certainly in cleaning supplies. So when you go into the bathroom and they've got the air fresheners, that definitely that. They're putting these chemicals in garbage bags now to counter the smell of any food or whatever odors or people have in their garbage. So those are definite things. Cleaning supplies are the big ones. I'm trying to think what else besides parks.
What about textiles like
Oh,
cotton?
definitely. And that's why organic mattresses have become so popular, because of the off gassing. And organic textiles is really the next frontier, because again, these people who are growing cotton, it's all GMO, it's predominantly GMO cotton, and they're spraying with all these pesticides, and it's clothes that you wear every day. It's whether it's socks or underwear, or shirts, whatever you're wearing. I mean, do you want that stuff touching your body?
Right, it's the same as with beauty products and then the lotions that we're slathering on our skin. That's basically being absorbed into your bloodstream in very high amounts. So same
Exactly.
thing with your clothes.
Exactly. And I think organic clothing is really the next frontier. And, as prices come down, and people don't want to sacrifice style. And one of my, good friends, Marcy Zaroff, is probably the preeminent organic clothing and textiles person in the country, and one of the top in the world. And she always talks about, no compromise for style and no compromise for the environment. And that, I believe, is the next frontier, which is organic clothing. So right now, it's not that hard. It's not that easy to find organic clothing. Yes, you can find it online. But Maria, how often do you go shopping and you see organic clothing? Aside from when you're in Whole Foods, I mean,
Right. Right. And I don't really want to wear anything from Whole Foods, to be honest. Like, no, believe me, I know, like, for years, I mean, I used to buy organic underwear. I'm going to be honest. I don't really buy it anymore just because first of all, it's very expensive and it's harder to find. You can't get all the styles and stuff.
mhm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount of organic clothing. I mean, one thing that I've been really cognizant of lately, but I don't really have a great alternative, is all of this workout clothes
mhm,
that is made from all these synthetic materials. And even, there's a lot of these great brands coming up that have these beautiful styles and they're trying to be sustainable and eco, and they're made out of plastic water bottles. And I'm like, I really do not want to be wearing a plastic water bottle while I'm hot and sweaty. And
mhm.
yeah, so we definitely need more options, not just in organic cotton and organic materials, but also that are fashionable, because I do not want to look like I'm wearing a canvas bag or something. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's definitely the next frontier.
Yeah, and I think it's coming, more and more. There are numerous organic, jeans companies where maybe in the past you'd never buy them, and now I think th- it's coming. It's coming. There are more entrepreneurs getting in the space, so the options. It's obviously I don't use them, but say organic tampons. There are numerous direct to consumer organic tampon companies on the market now. And maybe 2 or 3 years ago, there were probably, maybe one, or maybe you could buy them at Whole Foods, but there were not a lot of options a few years ago. And now there's numerous companies that are doing that. And I think the same thing's going to happen with clothing as well, because, when you eat organic food, it doesn't just stop like, okay, I'm going to eat organic food and that's it. You want, eco-friendly cleaning supplies, you want sheets, you want towels, you want clothing. It becomes a lifestyle because you don't want chemicals in any area of your life.
Right. You just kind of go down that rabbit hole and you realize how many toxins we're coming into contact with in our daily life. And I always say, wherever we have control, wherever we can make those changes and make those choices, that's where we should.
Mm-hmm.
And, so that way when we're out in the world where there's pollution and we're at restaurants and, we don't really have control over those things, that's okay as long as we're making the best choices that we can at home.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm really talking a lot more about now is air quality and ultrafine particles, because these are things that we cannot see, but they are linked to stroke, cardiovascular disease, lung cancer. Air pollution is a real, real issue. So that's something that I've been talking a lot more as of late as well.
A quick break from this episode to share with you an amazing opportunity. Are you interested in turning your passion for health and wellness into a career that helps hundreds, thousands, or even millions of people live healthier? If so, consider becoming a holistic health coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, the original and top health coach certification program. I studied there in 2012, and it completely changed my career path and life. I went from an uninspiring job in finance to an exciting, fulfilling, and rewarding career as a full-time health coach. The program is offered as a 1-year or accelerated 6-month course, and it teaches you a mix of nutrition, coaching, and business. They have some of the top teachers, including Dr. Walter Willett, who was the chair of Harvard's nutrition department for 26 years, Dr. Marion Nestle, a professor at NYU and author of one of my favorite books, Food Politics, Dr. Mark Hyman, who is the medical director at the Cleveland Clinic's Center for Functional Medicine, Dr. Andrew Weil, Deepak Chopra, Gabby Bernstein, and so many more. Millions of people are suffering from diet-related illnesses, and I truly believe the world needs more health coaches. That's why I've teamed up with IIN to offer an incredible opportunity to make studying there even easier. You'll get $1,500 off tuition, plus one-on-one mentoring with me, plus you'll be added to my private Facebook mentorship group where you can connect with other students and grads and also practice with them. To get your 3 bonuses, simply email me at maria@mariamarlowe.com. That's MariaMarlowe.com with the subject IIN, and I'll personally send you back the email that will allow you to get all of these amazing bonuses. If you feel called to explore or start a career in health and wellness, definitely reach out. Yeah, so I'd love to actually dive into that a little deeper because I'm very interested in this and I'm very interested in air quality because especially like traveling, sometimes different countries have very different air quality standards. And I used to think that LA was really polluted, but then you go to some other places and you're like, oh my God, I can't even breathe. It's so like the air is so heavy and so polluted.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen, again, warnings on different government websites, like when the air quality is so bad, they say, especially for people with heart conditions and certain conditions really should not be outside breathing that air because it can cause more issues for them. So is there a filter you recommend or how do you recommend we keep our air clean or any tips for just being cognizant of our air quality?
Well, The air purifier that I use is called the IntelliPure. And if anyone wants more information on it, they go to livingmaxwell.com/air, AIR. And what I've done there, Maria, this is a company I've been using their products, I don't know, for probably 15 years now, well before I started writing about the organic food industry. And what I did on my website, Maria, is I took a particle counter. This is a class 1 medical device. So I measured the air quality in my apartment with the IntelliPure versus two really popular machines. One is the Dyson and the other is the Molecule. And so I said, all right, let me test this out and see how they compare. My machine removed 100% of the ultrafine particles and viruses and bacteria. And the other ones only removed, roughly 60, 70, 80% of them. So not all of these air machines are created the same. And the other thing, these people who do the IntelliPure, they're involved with another company called pureroom.com, and they have about 5,000 hotel rooms. I'm not sure if it's international, but definitely in the US. Hotels throughout the country where they have these air purifiers in their hotel rooms, and they have hypoallergenic bedding. And when they first convert the hotel room over, they completely sanitize the hotel room. They've got filters on the shower heads. So, this is the way the world is moving. So when you're traveling, you want to look for that's pureroom.com. And you want to look for these types of things when you're traveling and make sure that, or a hotel that's got more and more hotels are using organic bedding, or some have organic mattresses. So these are the types of things that you want to look for. And definitely you want to bring your own, organic soaps and, eco-friendly soaps and shampoo when you're traveling. So these are the things that you've got to look for when you're traveling. And fortunately, the world's changing. So there are more and more of these options out there.
Right. That's awesome. I actually did not know of that website, so I will definitely be using that going forward. That's a great tip.
Well, I used it at Expo West this year in Anaheim, and I mean, it really made a difference. And the other thing that you want to do is you want to try, and this is much harder to find, is you want to try to find a hotel room where they open the windows. There's so many hotels now. I think they do it for liability purposes. They don't want anyone falling out of the window or jumping out of the window. So they seal the windows. You can't even open a lot of these windows. So if you're going to book a hotel room, I would also try to find a hotel room where the windows do open.
Right, because a lot of times the indoor air quality is actually worse than the outdoor air, right?
Well, the EPA says its indoor air quality is 2 to 5 times worse indoors than outdoors. And imagine if you're staying in a hotel where, and they'll tell you, yeah, we have air filters and we're pulling air, in and we're filtering it. But, come on, when was the last time they cleaned the air filters,
Right.
And so imagine you're in a hotel room where that hotel room for years and years and years has never gotten any fresh air.
Oh
Imagine.
God, that's actually so gross. And again, a good point that you don't really think about, but it's true. Most hotel rooms are sealed,
Yeah.
and we should really, we should really be having some fresh air. So even at home, I'm about to, after I get off of this call with you, I'm about to open my windows and get some fresh air in here.
Exactly.
Now, one more question I want to ask you just on the food front before we move on and change
Mhm.
directions a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about hydroponics? Because I know there's a little bit of controversy about them, especially as it relates to organics. So, can you tell us, just explain what hydroponics are and what your thoughts are on them?
Hydroponics are essentially you're growing vegetables in water, or fruits and vegetables in water. And that's what it is. And when organic standards were written, and it's very clearly in the statutes, I've read them. I mean, if you look at section 6513 in the Organic Foods Production Act of 1990, it says farmers have to have a management plan that fosters soil fertility. So a lot of these very, very big companies are growing berries and they're growing tomatoes. I would say people that I trust who are organic tomato farmers that are doing legitimate and growing it in the soil tell me they think about 90% of the nationally sold tomatoes are all hydroponic. So some people may be saying, well, what's wrong with hydroponic? There's nothing inherently wrong with hydroponic except it's not organic. Organic is about the soil. It's about getting the nutrients from the soil. Soil has energy that cannot be, and all these microbes that cannot be replicated in a bucket of water. So not only is it a violation of the Organic Foods Production Act of 1990, but it's putting these small organic farmers out of business. So if there are a lot of these farmers who are growing, say, tomatoes in the soil, cannot compete with these big hydroponic operators because of efficiency. And it's just not a level playing field. And the USDA is allowing this. And there's legal action against the USDA for them just sort of basically allowing it. I interviewed Sonny Perdue, the secretary of the USDA, and asked him about it. And his response was, well, our job is to feed the world. That's the response, we're getting. So there's legal action being taken. So when people out there are eating they might say, well, how do I know if mine are hydroponic? The big shell game in the industry is a lot of these big companies will say, we're not growing hydroponic. We're doing container growing systems. And it essentially is the same thing. A few minor technical differences, but you need to ask them, are you growing this in the ground with soil? That's the question when people are buying their berries or tomatoes, strawberries, whatever it may be. You'll notice a difference when you're eating a hydroponic strawberry versus a strawberry grown in the ground. You notice a difference. So hydroponic is a very, very serious issue in the industry, putting small organic family farmers out of business because they cannot compete on price, efficiency, and it's a nutritionally an inferior product because you cannot replicate the nutrition in a bucket of water than you can in the soil. Even if some of the macronutrients, some of these hydroponic people say, no, it's exactly the same. We've tested it. You can't duplicate the energy you get from soil and all the microbes you get from soil. We don't even know what these tests are because we don't really know what's in the soil. But we know that soil is energy and it's life, and you just cannot replicate that in a bucket of water. And that is just not what organic is all about.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes we should stop messing with Mother Nature, like just let her do her job and, let her do her own thing. And we don't need to try and recreate things in a lab or whatever. I mean, I understand in certain places in the world, for example, in the Middle East, it's so hot there for at least 6 months of the year. You literally can't grow pretty much anything except dates, and certain fruits, a few things, but you can't really grow greens and vegetables and all of this stuff. So a lot of times they'll turn to hydroponics. So maybe in that situation, it makes sense because they literally cannot grow anything else. But in places where we do have access to fresh food and we can grow them in the soil, I feel like that's always superior. And even, I was making a tomato tart the other day. And so I had to buy 2 pounds of tomatoes. So I bought a mix of heirloom tomatoes, which I absolutely love. They're so flavorful and they're so beautiful. And it's funny because the girl at the checkout counter was like, oh, I always think the heirloom tomatoes are so ugly because they're not perfectly round. They're all misshapen and there's lines and stuff in them. And they're beautiful colors. And when you cut them open, they look so different. And I actually bought regular tomatoes. I thought I was buying organic. They were actually conventional, just regular round red tomatoes. And then I bought the organic heirloom tomatoes. And I cut them up, sliced them, and I put them on 2 different trays. And just looking at them, you could see the stark difference because the conventional tomatoes, and I don't know if they were hothouse grown or not, they were completely waterlogged. There was a ring of they were just such a pale red color, and there was a ring of white almost inside, and they just looked bloated basically. And then the heirloom tomatoes were such a vibrant, rich color, and they were not overly wet or overly hydrated at all. Just looking at them, you could see the difference. Tasting them, you can see the difference. And definitely nutrition wise, when you're bloating a food with water, you're essentially diluting the nutrients in there and also the flavor. So
yeah, and taste is a really good indicator of nutrition. So if you're biting into a strawberry, even an organic strawberry, and this happened to me the other day, and I'm like, what I don't taste anything. There's no flavor. It gives you a good idea of how it was grown. So taste and color are very good indications of nutrition. I mean, I agree with you. It's something people that they really need to look out for, because if you're going to spend the money for organic, you want to make sure you're getting really flavorful, really nutritious food.
Yeah, I always tell people you haven't tasted a strawberry until you've actually tasted one from a farmer's market because they taste like night and day. The ones that you get in the grocery store, again, are typically huge. They're bloated, they're white inside, and they're just really not that tasty. They don't really taste like anything. And then you taste one of those little tiny strawberries from the farmer's market, and it's the explosion of flavor in your mouth. Even my mom, she was in Pennsylvania recently, and she can't stop talking about the strawberries that she had when she was in like Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So
Yeah.
it's a huge, huge difference.
It's kind of like peaches. When you get an organic peach, and it doesn't stay long because it goes bad pretty quickly, but when you time it right, I mean, there's nothing like it. Or a mango. When you have an organic mango and you've got it just at the right time, there are very few things that taste like that, and that's when you know you get that. And that's really how food should be and how it used to be.
Right. And how it should taste, be full of flavor.
Hmm.
So, I want to shift gears a bit and talk a little bit about the subject of your next book. I know that, or your first book, I know that you're working on, and your journey with depression. So, I feel this is something that, I mean, we're starting to talk a little bit more about now, especially with Mental Health Awareness Month. And I find that it's something that affects so many of us, like so many people, especially young people, are dealing with issues of depression and are on antidepressants.
Hmm.
So, can you share a little bit of your story and why you decided to write your book on this?
In 1990, when I was in college, I was having trouble getting through the day, and it was the struggles had been going on the years before, and it got really worse. And my parents came to visit me and said, we've been noticing you're really struggling, we're really concerned. We want you to go on antidepressants. One thing led to another, and then I went to go see a doctor. Next thing, they're like, yeah, you seem like you're depressed. It could help. So I took them. I always did what my parents told me to do, and I went on them. And in the beginning, it did help me get better. I did feel better. But over time, it started to numb me. They started to numb me emotionally, and I drank a lot. And when I moved to New York City, I was working on Wall Street. They really numbed me emotionally. And the only time that I felt free and alive was when I was drunk. And that's why I drank so much. And so numerous years later, in 2001, I realized that this is not how I wanted to experience life. And that what I vividly remember, I woke up one day. I mean, there was a whole series of things that happened that made me go off them. But I remember that I woke up one day and I said, it was a miracle that I was born, that anyone's born, not just me, but it's a miracle that we're born. And I said, the only way that I can get through life is through a pill made in some industrial park off the highway. I said, this is crazy. This makes no sense. And so I decided to go off the meds, and it took me 3.5 years to recover. I was suicidal, but I eventually turned the corner. But I just knew that and that was right around the time that I started eating organic food. I just knew that this was not how I wanted to experience life. And it didn't make sense to me that the only way I could get through life was through these meds. And so, yeah, depression is something that, afflicted me for many, many years. It was brutally difficult to get off of them. And I didn't know what I was doing and had to figure it out all on my own. And over time, I had to develop all these tools and strategies to deal with the depression. And there's just so much information I didn't have back then, that I have now it's, for me, it's not something that ever goes away. It's always something I have to monitor, and I have to do things to keep it in check. And then, later this year, I have a book coming out. It's a memoir about my experience before, during, and after the antidepressants. And my position is, I'm not saying everyone should go off of them. That's not my position. The book is really just about me and my journey. So I believe in individual choice. I believe people should do whatever they think is best for them. And whatever they do, they should consult a doctor. But so that's been my experience with antidepressants, and organic food actually played a very big role, because in 2001, when I found organic food, I knew that I was never going to not eat organic food again. I was like, I just don't see myself ever quitting organic food and going back to the chemicals and the GMOs. And here I am in New York City running around looking for food that doesn't have chemicals. And yet I was popping a chemical into my mouth each morning. I said, this doesn't make any sense. So, organic food did play a role in my going off of them.
And is there any other things that you found really helpful in sort of helping you feel back to normal?
There were several things. It's, one of the things that I talk about is to have a to-do list and a not to-do list. So it's in your to-do list, what are the things that you have to do to make your life function? So whether that's yoga or meditation or not eating sugar. Sugar was a really big one for me in my sort of recovery from depression, because I'd eat these cookies and, these were all natural organic cookies. And I'd fall into a massive depression for a week. I mean, it literally would take me a week to get out of this funk. And then I'd get out of it, I'd eat these cookies again, and all of a sudden, sort of the light bulb, I think it was in 2002, the light bulb went off. Oh my God, it's these cookies. And I realized that it was the refined sugar. So except for maybe some trade sugar, I practically eat no refined sugar. If I do, it's coconut sugar or palm sugar or honey or something like that. So it's having this to-do list and having a not to-do list, and they're opposites. So it's making sure that at the end of the day, Marie, we're our own coach at every single moment. And so we may have our own health coach or life coach or whatever it may be, but ultimately we have to be our own coach. We have to coach ourselves at all times. So we have to develop these habits and tools that can make us move forward. So for me, it's, getting sunlight and vitamin D is really important, not having the sugar, being with people is really important. Even though I was meditating when I was after I went off the meds, in 2001, meditation is incredibly important. So it's really finding the things that make your life go well and being really honest with yourself about what doesn't make your life go well, and acknowledging, when you are gravitating to doing those things.
I love that. I love the idea of this to-do and not to-do list, and I think those are all really great tips, and I really wanna thank you for sharing these things and writing this book because, like I said before, not a lot of people talk about this, and I think a lot of people can feel very alone and like they're the
Mm.
only one going through this, but the reality is so many of us are
Mhm.
going through this. So I really appreciate your time and effort to shed some light on this subject and help people find alternatives to boost their brain health and to boost their mood in some organic ways and ways that do not include pharmaceuticals. So that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. And it's not a how-to book, it's a memoir, but this is really the book that I wish I would have loved to have a how-to as well, but I wasn't even open to that back then. I just thought everything was going to go to normal when I went off. But it's really the book that I wanted to have back then. I wanted to see, okay, this person, what happens when you go off these meds? Now, there's a lot more awareness now than there was back in 2001, but it's really the book that I wish I had the time.
Right. And what is it called and when will it be released?
Well, the working title right now is called Unprepared, Breaking Free from a Decade of Antidepressants, and it will be out later this year.
That's awesome. And one last question that I love to ask all of my guests.
Okay.
If you can share just one tip or one piece of advice to live a happier and healthier life, what would that be?
I think out of all the time and hours and energy and money I've spent on personal, development, I think the number one thing area to be cognizant of is your subconscious, is getting a firm understanding of what your subconscious is telling you. And because I think happiness starts with taming that monster and making sure that you are in control and that your subconscious is not ruling you. Because our negative chatter starts with our subconscious. By the time we're 35, about 95% of our thoughts are driven by our subconscious. So I think happiness, really, the core of it starts with, becoming aware of what's going on in your subconscious mind.
I love that. Yeah, that's a topic that actually comes up every once and again on the podcast. And,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's also hard to tell, like, what's your inner voice and intuition, or what's your, sort of negative self talk, right? And this negative chatter. So it's really important to like get a handle of that and really work on those things that are not serving you and try and get rid of those thoughts that are not serving you and making sure that you're only feeding your brain and your thoughts and your subconscious with thoughts that are empowering you and going to help you move forward and be happy versus keep you in a darker, more negative place.
Exactly. And the first step to getting control over your subconscious is literally, it's meditation and just becoming aware of your thoughts. And it's that awareness of okay, I've had all these thoughts today. Wow, I didn't even realize that, I'm on autopilot all day. It's that becoming aware of how you are thinking, acting, and feeling. It's that awareness is the first step to getting control over it and breaking free from its grip on your life.
For sure. And for anyone listening who wants to try meditation, I do have a recent episode with Emily from Ziva Meditation, who is one of the nation's top meditation experts. So definitely check that out. I've been doing her meditation style. I read her book and it's definitely life-changing. And it's easy to do. So definitely check it out. Anywho, Max, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your insights. And for anyone listening, if you want to learn more about organics, definitely check out Max's site called organicinsider.com. And he has this great newsletter you can sign up for that's going to send you all the latest news and the most important news about organic food. You can also check out his website called livingmaxwell.com, which has a wealth of information about healthy living and the organic lifestyle. And check out that air purifier site that he mentioned. That's what, livingmaxwell.com/air.
Very good. Great memory. Yeah, that's it. It's called the IntelliPure. And it's important that people get educated about air quality because it's sort of like, the organic clothing. It's coming. It's the next frontier. Not everyone's aware of it, and it's hard because you can't see it. But yeah. But Maria, thank you so much for having me on your show. I love what you're doing and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you.